Okay, this is my week 6 video journal. I'm going to start with Showtime, chapter 6, where I found it really neat that Jazz Age was a term coined by F. Scott Fitzgerald, especially since he and his wife Zelda absolutely embodied the time. And in fact, Stempel says that the show No No Nanette epitomized jazzomania to Europeans at many levels of culture as well. And some Americans, too, took it symbolically. Ella Fitzgerald, for one, heard it as an expression of the liberated flapper lifestyle she espoused. And in Vincent Yeoman's songs in particular, she found the musical voice and emotional emblem of the age her husband had named. We also know that Stempel tells us jazz came to symbolize the undoing of puritanical conventions, a potent force in the post-war breakdown of idealism and traditional values in American life. It did later just get used as the term for any popular music in the time period, but we were stepping away from the neat and tidy, kind of. So then reviews were one of the most prominent performance styles that were happening during this time, and they flirted dangerously with that line of propriety, that new line that's being given. Most of them did anyway. Ziegfeld's Follies, I keep saying Follies definitely fit a little bit more into the propriety side of it. However, he still showcased beauties in a living mannequin style, which he took from Lady Duff Gordon, which is how she showcased her fashions in her studios, and where the beautiful glide across the stage, where he's just showcasing the human form or the feminine form for his audiences. However, on the other side of that, we have the Vanities, and the Vanities was definitely one that flirted more with the legality of how much they showed. So they included comedians and strippers. It was the opposite. Stempel also hints that the Vanities may not have stayed within the legal boundaries as often as they should have, which is, all the time, but yeah, they probably didn't. And then I also found it really neat that a lot of the styles that we saw, all the common styles or all the known styles of dance at that time were being seen on stage, sometimes even in the same show. But also that a lot of the really popular songs a lot of the popular songs too, were coming out of Harlem and the Harlem Renaissance, and then they would be kind of toned down a little bit for Broadway. But things like the Charleston, which it's cool to know that did come from there, but also I'm not surprised, or I wish I could say I was surprised, that just became a big part of the movement. Yes, I think those are the big things I wanted to say about Showtime. So when we look at our musicals ourselves, Jones is mainly highlighting that this was a time of prosperity for the majority of Americans. Not really farmers, not a lot of minorities, but the majority of Americans across the country were seeing a time of prosperity, which led them to being able to spend their money on luxuries and gave rise to commercialism. And I lost a different word, but that's where we're at. So we were able to get not just the necessities of life for the majority of Americans. So we're seeing things like becoming into sports and going and playing sports like golf and tennis, and going to horse races and getting into boxing and bicycling as sports, buying cars and traveling and getting away for the weekend more. We're seeing people buying more frivolous purchases like radios at the time, which radios in the home led to my next point, which I found very interesting. And I put together that this was the start of the true crime girlies like we see now. It started in the 1920s. It started during the Jazz Age when the radios were brought into the home, and people had already been following, sensationalized trials or, well-known criminal stuff in the newspaper. But now people could be feel like they were in the courtroom, in the safety of their home, and hear all the drama firsthand through essentially a narrator hyping up what happened on stage. Which thank you Chicago for showing us that, because that's definitely what was happening, and I found that really interesting. I also can't say that I'm surprised that Prohibition shows up in shows, including seeing punchlines where there's someone who's got a flask and things like that. But it was very clear that the majority of people were not for Prohibition, and that came across in their performances, both in the way the plays were written, in the plot, and the characters. It was clear that the writers often were not really for Prohibition. And then it also helps that to enhance and further that, because as Jones said, speakeasies were on nearly every city block, and they're also showcasing jazz music and this underground lifestyle that just, again, back to Stempel's point, was fighting back against the puritanical ideas that America had had up to this point. And of course, all of the types of sports and all of these new things are finding their way into the stage, onto the stage. Jones also took a moment in chapter 2 to dive deeper into Black musicals and how Black culture was impacting Broadway. But he indicated the complex relationship between Leslie, and I did not write down the first name, who was a Jewish producer who was also like the leading employer of Blacks, and had a whole all-white team writing all these plays with more interesting Black characters. They were a little closer to real. Still very stereotypical, but a little closer in the styles of Shuffle Along, and more that way, but not Shuffle Along. But while it was promoting and allowing a lot of Blacks to be in the theater work, it also wasn't, it was still exploitive in nature. It was still using that niche, and he was profiting off of it more than probably a lot of the people that were working for him. I did find more information on Showboat, but I'm going to save that for my video midterm project. I picked not Showboat, but it leads into that because of Hammerstein. So I'm going to save that for later, but I did find it interesting and enjoyed reading more about Showboat and how that went into things. So that is my week 6 video journal.